Hello everyone, my name is Maria and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is gonna be the first in many videos in which I am going to make a comparison between a book and its film adaptation. And the book for this video is going to be Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen and the 1995 movie adaptation by Ang Lee with Kate Winslet, Emma Thompson and Hugh Grant. So how are we going to do this? The first part of the video is going to be a reading log followed by a general opinion of the book. What I thought, how I felt, if I liked it, if I did not, like just the book review. And the second part of the video is going to be an analysis of the film by itself, just as a film. How it manages to tell a story and how it looks like and the characters and all that, just as an individual film. And after the analysis is going to be a comparison between how well was it adapted. And finally, my general opinion on both. If you should read the book and watch the film or just watch the film, like. So you can choose. I'm gonna help you choose which one you would prefer. I will be leaving the timestamps in the description below so you can skip to whatever section of the video you want to watch. Also, if I keep looking down, I am looking at my notes. And with that being said, let's get on with the video. It's a lot later, as you can probably see, but I forgot to update you. I am currently on page 106 and so far I've been really liking it. It's been really easy to read, which I didn't thought was gonna be possible as it is written in Old English and in third person, and English is my second language, so I didn't thought it was gonna be that easy, but it is. It is, and the characters are enjoyable and everything, and I'm just really having a good time, which is always good. So yeah, that's it. So I finished the book. So yes, I did film the intro after I read the book. What did I thought of Sense and Sensibility? This book is about two sisters, Eleanor and Marianne, and their different ways of approaching love and finding happiness in a society where money and status is basically everything, as this story is set in England at the end of the 18th century. How would I describe in a few words this book? No plot, just vibes. Literally. Like, technically nothing really happens in the book. If you're very into like adventure and high stakes and all of that, I don't think this is the book for you. One of the things I really did it for me were the characters. And thank God, because this is a character-driven book. Nothing else happens except for them talking. That's it. That's basically it. I found it very interesting how Jane Austen creates and develops each and one of her characters, because they actually feel like real people. Like, these people show their emotions and feel things and say things as a real person, well, would have done at that time, but they feel real, they feel genuine, and that's why I like them. And it's very funny how you feel with the characters, because even though these people speak in like a very elaborate old English of 100 years ago, you still feel what they are trying to say in a way that is not only just like nowadays, where you may be sarcastic and what you're literally saying is not what you mean, and you feel that. And I thought that was gonna be very hard to understand, and at parts it was sometimes difficult to understand. And sure, the social circumstances of today are completely different, with marriage and status and all that, compared to when the book was written. But the troubles and the circumstances and the dilemmas that these characters go through are things that are not of a specific time. These things still happen to this day, and so that makes you feel for these characters and make you root for them or hate them or be satisfied with how things end up happening. I loved how Jane Austen writes her female characters, because maybe they don't fight the social structure and try to make a whole revolution, but they are strong female characters. They do represent, in a way, how women are. They are not these perfect little girls that are in this society and do whatever they said or do whatever is expected of them. They suffer and they fight and they get mad and they say things and they defend themselves, and they're not scared of pointing their opinion. And at least how women of this period are portrayed as either these with the two extremes on the scale, where they're either completely in with the social boundaries and they do everything that is expected of them, and they say everything right and they do everything right, and they're just like this perfect little mannequin, or they're this completely different, outstanding and not like other girls characters. And I find that, well, those portrayals are true in some cases, but I also like to see characters that work in the middle, that they function with what their society says, but they're also able to make choices, to make their lives however they want to make them. So every single one of these like post-its are moments where characters were actively disagreeing with what was happening or when it was said. These are small acts that make a huge difference in how these characters are built and what you think of them. So you can see Jane Austen as a very intelligent woman in how she made strong female characters. I also loved Eleanor. She's a great big sister who loves and takes care of her little sisters and her family in general. And she's very polite and really knows how to present herself in society, while also just not taking shit from anyone. And I just love that for her. Also, a very satisfying thing is the consequences for each and every character were proportional for their actions, and I found that very satisfying. The only thing I did not like was one of the age gaps between the marriages. It was like 20 years, but I don't take Jane Austen accountable for that, because that was very normal when she wrote it. So yeah, it was good. We'll see how the movie goes. As you just saw, I just watched the film and the casting was pretty much impeccable, and I think that is one of the strengths this film has. because combined with an excellent direction from Ang Lee, we get authentic characters, and I think that's one of the best things that one can have in a film. And honestly, I didn't expect it to be as funny as it was. Like, the characterization of every actor is just excellent. Another thing that I liked about the film was the photography, especially the overframing that we had in some of the scenes, because I feel like it accentuated the intention of the scene and it showcased the locations very, very well. Regarding the editing, I think it was mostly fine, but some of the cuts were a little too strong and made the hard cuts a little harsh for my liking. Other times, these hard cuts were used for comedic effect and they worked great, actually. Talking about transitions, one of the things that I liked the most was the transition of Marianne playing the piano, and we followed the sound into the next scene. But they added little by little the orchestra part of the piece that she was playing, and it made the transition very, very smooth. Now let's talk about the story. The movie is a little bit over 2 hours, and you just feel them go by. You don't feel the 2 hours at all. And I think that this is because the film relies and takes advantage of the non-verbal relationships between the characters. What do I mean by this? For example, a scene where Eleanor and Marianne are talking. We're actively hearing what they're saying, but we see how they interact with each other. So that makes the film a lot more dynamic. And I think that's great for a period drama because usually they rely too heavily in dialogue and they don't have enough action. Now, how does the book and the film compare to each other? This part is gonna have spoilers, so spoiler alert for both the book and the film. First things first, the casting for the film is a 10 out of 10. Everyone is basically how I pictured them when I read the book. Colonel Brandon is so sweet, just as I pictured him, and Miss Lucy Steele is even more of an attention seeker and an annoying person as in the book. No, well, the book, she was pretty annoying in the book too. One of the biggest differences between the book and the film is the pacing of the story. And I think this is due to the book having extra scenes that were taken out of the film because they were not really necessary and could be told in a more concise way. So for example, it doesn't take 3 to 4 encounters between Eleanor and Lucy to understand how they relate to each other and to find out about Lucy's secret engagement with Edward. Another thing the film changed was how they introduced each character, because in the way they did it, you can see clearly their intentions and their desires right off the bat. For example, Margaret. Margaret is the youngest Dashwood sister, so it's Eleanor, Marianne, and Margaret. And while in the book she had zero participation whatsoever on the events, and if you just took her out of the book, nothing would change, basically. In the film, she is crucial. Without her, the conflict in a lot of the scenes wouldn't make sense and it would just not work, because she elevates the main aspects of character of everyone around her. In integrating Margaret, Edward becomes a lot more interesting to us and obviously to Eleanor, because we can see how tender and understanding and funny he actually is. Like, for example, when he finds Margaret in the library and helps Eleanor to get her out and introduce herself, we see he's very compassionate and understanding of Margaret, as he himself is very shy. And honestly, by doing these little interactions, especially at the beginning of the film, I realized how boring book Edward actually is. I also want to add that the love confession between Eleanor and Edward in the book is very anticlimactic. And it's because of two things. First of all, we saw how Edward's mother did not appreciate Eleanor. In the book, we actually saw how they met. So at the end, in the proposing scene, after saying basically "I love you" to each other, Edward goes like, "Oh, and I know my mother doesn't like you, but it's fine." And she's like, "Oh yeah, she doesn't like me, but it's fine." And it kind of ruins the mood. In the other hand, the love confessing scene in the film is this very, very sweet moment, and we get this great dynamic between both of the characters, because in one hand we have Edward that still doesn't really know how to show his emotions and how to communicate his feelings, and in the other hand we have Eleanor that is finally, for the first time in the film, really letting her feelings out. And so we have this very funny dynamic where Edward really doesn't know how to act and what to say to her, because she's just there sitting crying her eyes out because she finally feels like she has a chance of happiness. Another scene that was removed was drunk Willoughby confessing everything to Eleanor while Marianne was sick. And I think that was a very smart choice. By at the end, him looking in the distance, Marianne's marriage with the colonel, it's a lot more poetic and it's not outright explained to you, but you do understand that he regrets the decisions that he made and that he did love and still did love Marianne, but he made those choices and he has to leave them. So what are my final thoughts? Did I enjoy the book? Yes. Did I enjoy the film? Absolutely yes. Is it worth reading the book, or should you just skip straight to the film? Honestly, I think I would recommend watching the film because it has everything that makes the book great right then and there. It just eliminates everything that's not necessary. But if you are like me and doesn't care for slow paced, character driven storylines with heavy dialogue, I do recommend reading Sense and Sensibility or any other Jane Austen book because she writes beautifully. And yes, my final ratings are: I gave the book a 4 out of 5 stars and I gave the film a 6 out of 10 stars. Why a 6 out of 10? Because I don't rate films from 1 to 5 because I feel like they have too many things for me to think about and how I enjoy them to only rate them to 1 to 5. So I rate them from 1 to 10, 10 being my absolute favorite films of all time. So that was all for today. Thank you very much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed, and if that's the case, please like and subscribe, as I enjoyed very much making this video for you, and I plan on making more of these videos in the future. So yeah, see you in the next one. Bye!